Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, and it's always exciting. I'm always happy to go back across the Atlantic over to Germany, and welcome back to the show, Florian Feynman. How are you today, Florian?
Thank you. I'm fine. Good to be back again.
Well, it's fun to have you back, and I thought today this is going to be kind of a fun show because you are getting ready to go on your next contract cruise with Mein Schiff. And did I say that? It's Mein Schiff is the cruise line, correct?
The cruise line, it's TUI Cruises.
Okay, then Mein Schiff is the name of the different ships?
Exactly, yeah.
And they have 6 different ships, I think?
At the moment, there are 7? No, 6, 7? I'm not sure.
Okay, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there with that. Okay, so Florian, you're getting ready to go on your next contract with TUI Cruise Lines on Mein Schiff 3.
Yeah, Mein Schiff 3 is going to be my next home away to home from home, if you want to say that. It's going to start August 9th, and I will be on board around 4 months, so I will return home on December 5th. So and I will embark in Bremerhaven in Germany and disembark in Singapore. So I'm going to see a little bit of the world.
Mostly going towards Asia this time.
Yeah, we will go through the Suez Channel, past Dubai, and then go to Singapore.
Have you been over to that part of the world before?
No, never before. So it's hopefully I will have time to go out and see a little bit because I'm very interested. And we will be in India, for example, and that's going to be very, very interesting, I think.
That would be neat to go and see some of those different spots that I've been through the Middle East, but I've never been to India and some of the places that you'll be stopping as you make your way towards Singapore.
And I haven't even been to the Middle East, so it's going to be completely new. Everything that comes eastern of Greece is completely new for me.
Well, before we jump in and talk about that tonight, I want to say congratulations to you for finishing up your studies and completing your degree.
Thank you. It's been a hard time the last months, but finally I did it. Thank you.
And now you get to relax just a little bit before you take off on your sailing with Mein Schiff.
Yeah, it's a mixture of holiday and preparation, so not too much time to relax.
Well, before we start talking about kind of what it's like to work, sail, to get a contract with a cruise line tonight, I thought we'd kind of take a look at Meyer Werft a little bit. Florian and I were talking before the show. Not a ton of news going on right now, although there was just steel cutting for which cruise line was it again?
It was the keel laying of the Spirit of Discovery for Saga Cruises from Great Britain. It's going to be a quite small ship for 999 people or passengers on board. So nothing to compare with, for example, the Royal Caribbean or Disney ships that are slightly bigger.
And then the other thing we were kind of talking about is kind of like timeline for Disney with their first new ship coming on board about 2021 or projected to be in 2021. We were talking the possibility that they should have their, why am I totally trying to blank on this? What'd you call it? Keel laying?
Steel cutting. The first milestone, so to speak, is the steel cutting, where you start cutting steel plates for the steel construction, and around 6-7 months later, you celebrate the keel laying, where the first, we call it block at Meyer Werft, where the first part of the ship is brought into the building dock, and the building officially starts.
Did we determine that the steel cutting will start in a year, or the first block will be in position in a year?
It should be the steel cutting, and maybe August or September 2019.
Okay, and then 6 months after that, the true building will begin.
Yeah. So then you see the ship growing and growing in the building dock.
So just kind of a timeline for everybody that is following along with the new Disney ships. About a year from now, it's pretty exciting news that they're going to actually start work on one of the first of the new ships coming. So that year will go by fast, I'm sure, and we'll be able to watch it grow over the time. So pretty excited about that.
I'm also pretty excited because I just saw some pictures from the steel cutting of Disney Dream a few years ago, and truly Disney Cruise Line has something special with them whenever they have a celebration of a milestone at Meyer Werft. So they do not only cut out the silhouette of the ship at the first steel cutting, but for example, they had also the silhouette of Mickey Mouse cut out of the steel plate and celebrated it with little fireworks, and pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's pretty neat that they do the Mickey Mouse logo too. So what happens to those? Do they give those out to the executives, or what happens to those cuttings again?
Well, they are pretty large. I guess it's around 1.5 meters, and they're pretty heavy. And usually they are stored somewhere at the shipyard, kind of as a memory.
And beyond the Disney ships, we're also talking that TUI Cruise Lines and Norwegian Cruise Lines kind of made some news in that they are going away from Meyer Werft and going to Fincantieri in Italy. And we were kind of talking about this ahead of time too before we started recording. And what does Meyer Werft think about that? Are they worried about losing some of the business to Fincantieri, or do they have enough orders themselves already that they're not too worried about it?
I think both is true. When Norwegian Cruise Line announced the first 4 ships ordered at Fincantieri, like 1.5 years ago, Bernhard Meyer said something like, "I'm pretty sure NCL is going to return to Meyer Werft." So he, of course, knows what reasons might have caused that Fincantieri got the orders. But of course, TUI Cruises and NCL are both very important customers at Meyer Werft. So TUI Cruises got all their new builds. Mein Schiff 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is going to be delivered in 2023, and Mein Schiff 1 this year and Mein Schiff 2 next year, all built by the Meyer Werft so Meyer Turku in Finland. And Norwegian Cruise Line got, I think, 13 or 14 ships of their fleet built by Meyer Werft. So they're very important customers and have been there for many, many years. So yeah, I think Meyer Werft is trying or will be trying to get them back, but they have orders through, I think, 2023, 2024 at both shipyards. So there's work enough to do.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, and I don't know this, I'm just kind of speculating. I know we are in the process, the company that I work for, we were mostly a Boeing company. We've just, our company bought another company that was all Airbus, and now our company's kind of playing both Airbus and Boeing off each other to figure out who is going to give us the best price to replace some of our airplanes. And I'm sure there's a little bit of that gamesmanship for NCL and whatnot when they go back and forth with 2 very popular, big, and well-established shipyards like Fincantieri and Meyer Werft.
Yeah, it will be probably kind of the same game going on there. And Norwegian Cruise Line also ordered at STX France, for example, a few years ago. The Norwegian Epic was built there. But the same was that Bernhard Meyer predicts happened. They had one ship built at another shipyard and returned to Meyer Werft for their next ships. And that was Norwegian Breakaway, Getaway, Escape, Joy, Bliss, and one more. So Bernhard Meyer might be right. He knows the business very well.
Yeah, I'm sure that they do. So we'll kind of keep our eye on that and kind of watch the industry as it kind of goes. But tonight we're going to talk about your upcoming contract with Mein Schiff. Now you're going to be on Mein Schiff 3. And before we talk about just like what it's like to work and get a contract and everything on that, could you talk a little bit about the ship? Have you been on it before?
Yeah, I have been on the Mein Schiff 3 before. But only as a daily visitor. So I had a few hours to experience the ship. But I was working before in the Mein Schiff 5, which is, I think, 95% similar. So the ships are, mid-size, 2,500 passengers at double occupancy, and they're around 300 meters long, 37 meters wide, I think. So there's plenty of space, actually, and TUI Cruises calls the ship they call it well-being ships. So there's not so much entertaining going on, not so much quizzes, trivia, stuff like that. You can do it if you want to. You can play bingo, you can play shuffleboard if you want to, but it's not that you see it on every corner. So it's quite around the ship. Of course, you have a theater, but for example, there's only one show playing each night, because Germans think if you have two shows playing at one evening, the show can't be good. That's German logic.
I think you're probably right in that in a lot of ways.
And the ships have some unique venues. For example, they have a concert hall for around 250 people with the same acoustic system, for example, that also the Sydney Opera has. They have the same acoustical system on the ships. And they have a swimming pool on the pool deck that is 25 meters long, the longest at sea, as far as I know.
Wow. So kind of a ship that's more about the destinations and more about maybe relaxing than all-out entertainment is kind of what I'm getting the gist of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's more about the destinations, and it's for people who want to relax during a cruise.
Okay, rather than the go of some of the cruises that you can get on.
Yeah, I forgot one very important thing. At TUI Cruises, they call it premium all-inclusive. So all the beverages, service charges, tips, and so on are included in your ticket price. The only things you have to pay extra are, for example, shore excursions, spa treatments, and there are 3 restaurants and 1 bar that cost you a little bit extra.
Okay. So with the different ships with TUI, like with Disney, with the Magic tends to be in the Caribbean in the winter, and then it's over in Europe in the summer. The Wonder's in Alaska in the summer, but then the Dream and the Fantasy just kind of ply the Caribbean back and forth. How does Mein Schiff work it with their different ships? Are they all over the world? So does Mein Schiff 3 have a region of the world that it likes to stay in, or do they kind of go all different places depending upon the time of year? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
It's pretty much depending on the seasonality. For example, in the European summer months, all ships are in Europe, as far as I know. There are 4 ships cruising in the Baltic Sea and north to Norway, Iceland, and there are ships in the Mediterranean and on the Canary Islands. So those are the destinations in the summer, and in the winter the ships spread out into the world. So the new Mein Schiff 1, which has been delivered in April, will go to the Canaries. Mein Schiff 2, which is an older ship, and will be renamed into Mein Schiff Hart, or for the Germans, Mein Schiff Herz. So very creative name. I don't know who had this wonderful idea. No one knows. And that ship goes to the Mediterranean. The Mein Schiff 3 goes to Asia. Mein Schiff 4 and I think Mein Schiff 4 goes to the Arab Emirates, to Dubai, Abu Dhabi. Mein Schiff 5 and 6 go to the Caribbean and Middle America. You have destinations all over the world.
Exciting. And as we talked about at the beginning, you are going to be on Mein Schiff 3, and you are heading through the Suez Canal down around the Middle East and eventually making your way to Singapore. So I thought it'd be fun tonight, Florian, we've never really talked about what it's, or with anybody yet on our show yet, about what it's like to actually get a contract and then also to work on the ship. And I thought that'd be kind of fun to do that with you tonight. So before we jump into it, who else have you interned with or worked with? Now, I know you've been on Mein Schiff, was it 5?
5, yeah.
5. So I know you did time there, but did you actually ever work at Norwegian, or did you intern, or did you just spend some time on the ships visiting?
Well, during my internship semesters, I spent almost 5 months on board the Mein Schiff 5. That was a contract like everyone else. So I was not. My university thought it was an internship, and TUI Cruises had me employed like everyone else. Afterwards, I spent 6 months at Norwegian Cruise Line as an intern in the business development department. So I wanted to see the ship side and the shore side business within a cruise line, or within two cruise lines in this case. So I have experience already working on cruise ships, but when I applied for the job on the Mein Schiff 5, I did not, and still I was employed, fortunately.
Okay. So how does that process work? If somebody wants to get a contract or to work on a cruise line, how does that whole process work as far as applying for that contract?
Well, in the beginning you apply, well, that's my experience at TUI Cruises and Sea Chefs, who's the employing company on behalf of TUI Cruises. It might be different at other cruise lines. You usually apply for a job on board like for any other job you could have shoreside. So you write an application, you have your CV and so on, you load it up, and you usually get invited to a casting day, so to speak. You get invited into a 1 day long assessment center where they try to find out whether you can do the job on board or not. And that was the case with me as well. So I don't know, a few days after I loaded up my application, I got a call and they said, well, your application sounds interesting to us. Please come to our next casting day, assessment center day, and we will see. And I got there. That was in Hamburg, and in March, and in August I went on board Mein Schiff 5. So it's quite a long time before you can start usually your first contract on board. And then I was invited to the assessment center, and they did some practical trainings with us. So the first task was to give a ship tour within a group of, I think, 5 people who had all applied for the same job. And that was quite easy for me because I'm a tour guide at Meyer Werft, so I know how to speak in front of a group of people. And I had already known the ship. So it was quite easy for me. But of course, we got time to prepare ourselves with the brochures and deck plans and so on. And the next task was quite funny because TUI Cruises does have a art room with a painter on board. And the painters were also casted at that day. And we were, so to speak, the passengers, or simulating the passengers. The painters had to train. And we had to, cooperate and co-work with them. That was fun. Yeah, in the end, you get invited to a little personal conversation with your several people from TUI Cruises and Sea Chefs, the employing company. And they told me, well, we want to hire you. Please take your time, take a day to think about whether you really want to spend 4 or 5 months on board a cruise ship, be away from your home, and then give us a call or email us and you will get the job. So there's not too much pressure on you because, well, it's a tough decision whether you want to spend such a long time away from your home, parents, friends, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. But since my girlfriend was with me that day and applied for the same job, of course, we were sure we wanted to take the opportunity.
Yeah, that's neat that they do that to kind of really make sure that, because that is a big decision to be gone that long and to kind of live in, we'll talk about the environment that you live in on board the ship, which is a lot different than the passengers do. So that's nice that they because the last thing they want is somebody to start be miserable and quit right away too once they're on board.
Yeah, exactly. It's very expensive to recruit new people.
Right. Well, how long is a typical contract? Is 4 to 5 months? And I know maybe it's different at each cruise line, but from what you've seen, is a typical contract about 4 to 5 months, 6 months or so, or what do you think about that?
It really depends on the department you're working in.
Okay.
For example, I call it cruise director staff and guest services. 4 months is the typical average. For example, Shore Excursion does a little bit longer, up to 6 months. The nautical staff, so all the officers, watchkeeping officers, and seamen and women working on the bridge and the engine room and so on, they do 6 to 9 months. And so does, for example, do the security department, the chefs and the galley waiters, they usually do up to 9 months. And it really depends on the cruise line and the department.
So somebody like with the last ship or cruise we were on, we met Leslie, was our cruise director, and she'd come on maybe 2 cruises before ours. And so she'll be on for a couple months, and then she has time off. I don't mean for you to speak just to Disney. I guess my question is, once you get that contract, so you do your 4 months, and then you get some time off before they bring you back on again. Are you employed that whole time, or do you have to reapply for each one of those contracts, or how does that work? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, well, that's very, very different from cruise line to cruise line. In my case, I'm only employed during the time on board, and I'm not when I do vacation on shore, but I got leave pay and so on. But you usually don't have to reapply for each and every contract. Usually when you disembark the one ship before your vacation, you already know where and when you will be back on board and on which ship you will board then again. In my case, after 4 months on board, I do usually get around 2 months of vacation.
And then your next contract would start after that. And I've talked to, like from our servers on board and whatnot, where they know that, matter of fact, I think it was our drink server this last cruise. He had 1 more week, and then he was going back to Colombia, and he already knew that he was going on to the Fantasy after that. So that's kind of neat to see how that works.
It's funny. For example, 2 years ago, I was on board. Is it true? Yeah, 2 years ago, I was on board Mein Schiff 5, and I have already 4 or 5 colleagues from then, of which I know that they will be on Mein Schiff 3 when I will be on board. That's sometimes very nice.
Oh, it's nice that you'll know some people already on board that you've got relationships with.
Yeah, it's very nice because I will be on board almost 2 weeks before my girlfriend will come on board, so I don't have to be bored.
So that's another question. I know that you and your girlfriend set it up so that you guys could both be on the same ship on the same contract time, roughly. How much of a say do you have in things like that? In other words, how much do you have or do you have any say? This is a crazy question, I guess, but I mean, yeah. if you can't work till next month, can you tell them I can't work till next month, or do you have to come this month? Or what do you have any say in?
Of course, you can always negotiate to a certain extent, but usually the more in advance you can plan, for example, that you want to go on your next contract, the more in advance or the higher are the chances that you can influence that your girlfriend or friends will be on the same ship. Of course, sometimes there's only 1 week difference, sometimes there are 4 weeks difference, but our experience at TUI Cruises and Sea Chefs is that they are quite flexible for pairs.
Oh, that's good. So they're willing to work with you. Okay. So once you get hired and you start the training process, do they do any training on land in some of their offices on land, or is it all done once you get on board the ship? And it probably depends upon what position you have.
Yeah, absolutely. In my case, in guest services, I have to do some online trainings before I go on board. Those are security relevant trainings to get, again, familiar with certain security rules on board, and of course product knowledge training. And those are done online in advance. And I think, well, it should be the first 2 or 3 weeks, at least in the case of TUI Cruises, you have trainings on board. All kinds of security trainings, firefighting training, emergency training. So there are several trainings, even human resource and intercultural behavior trainings. So they make sure you are aware of cultural differences, for example, in case of certain gestures or whatever. They really want to make sure that everyone lives together happily from 50, 60 different nations.
And that's amazing, isn't it, to have that many people from so many different countries living and working together, isn't it?
It's so amazing. I actually do not have any words for it. But to experience working together with people from the Philippines, South America, North America, even Africa, Asia, And it doesn't matter if you're Asian or American or German or whatever, because when you're friendly, it doesn't matter. It's sometimes very easy in a parallel universe, so to speak, that a cruise ship can be. I hope that made sense. I'm not sure.
No, it totally did. I think that would be kind of a neat part of cruise ship life, is being able to meet so many different people from so many different countries and kind of learn their customs and their thoughts. And you definitely see it even as a passenger, and it's fun to talk to the different crew members from the different places where they're from and kind of learn about what their life is like back where they live.
Yeah, and whenever I'm on board a cruise ship as a passenger, more or less every time this topic, crew life, is part of conversation with other crew members. And you find out, well, sometimes it's totally different, but sometimes it's absolutely the same, although they're working on a completely different cruise line or different ship, different destination. But some things are absolutely the same across the whole industry.
Yeah, you're kind of like a part of a club of, people that have done that same job. Yeah. So it's kind of neat to share your experiences.
Yeah, sometimes it's these inside jokes or certain phrases that everyone uses. You're exactly in that moment, he's a crew member, she's a crew member.
I get a kick out of it because I can literally, when I go to the different hotels that we go to, when I'm on a layover, I can always tell who the aircrew people are. We just all kind of look the same. So it's probably the same thing with working in the cruise industry, where you can just pick people out in a crowd from, maybe gestures or things they say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, well, let's talk about the training kind of goes on, beforehand. And then once you get on board, continual training for many different things, the firefighting, like you said, you've got important jobs that you have to do in cases of emergencies. So obviously that type of training goes on. Let's talk about what's a typical day like. What was a typical day like for you working in guest services? Like, what did you do? How many hours did you work? That kind of stuff.
I think there is no such thing as a typical day on board a cruise ship. Of course, there are repeating jobs, but usually every day is different. Sometimes I only work 6 hours. Sometimes I do work 15, 16 hours, especially on embarkation days. You work a lot when you have to... First, you have to say goodbye to the passengers from the previous cruise. Then you have to do your reports, end of cruise reports, for example. Then you go to lunch and straight to the check-in to say hello to the new passengers. And then different activities on board start. You have, we called it, I forgot how we called it, damn. Pool spot, that was the thing. So we got to the pool deck. There is a little stage, and we were introduced to the passengers by the cruise director. And I think all cruise lines do that, sometimes with more people, sometimes with less people, more or less crew. Afterwards, you have to go your rounds on the ship, see what's going on in the bars, maybe have a little chat with passengers, welcome them on board, make sure they feel well. And during a cruise, it really depends whether you have a day at sea where more activities on board are planned and you have more shuffleboard or tougher shuffleboard schedule. You play bingo. You have to do ship tours, which was my favorite part, to do ship tours, because then you get to know people a little more well, because it takes 1.5 hours. And these people who attend a ship tour usually come back to you during the cruise when they have any issues or something interesting to tell, whatever. And this is very nice, in my opinion. So yeah, there are no typical days. And when you're in port, sometimes you get the chance to attend shore excursions. When I was in the Caribbean, for example, I was there as a translator, because the tour guides in the Caribbean are mostly English speaking and the guests are German speaking. And to make it a little bit more convenient for them, I was there as a translator. That was very nice sometimes, but sometimes you just have a day off if you're lucky, and you can go out and experience the destination by yourself, which is also very nice. For example, we had kind of our favorite spot on Aruba, where we went every 2 weeks when we were there.
Before we talk about getting off and spending some time in the ports like that. I have a question about that turnaround day. Is that a hard day to do? It seems like it's kind of a chaotic day, for us coming on, passengers coming on. But is that hard? Is that kind of a hard emotional day to say goodbye to a group of people and then, kind of take a breath and then start all over again?
It's definitely the most challenging day of every cruise.
Uh-huh.
And at TUI Cruises, we are lucky because usually one cruise is between 10 and 14 days. So you don't have too many embarkation dates or turnaround days. But sometimes, yes, it's very hard to say goodbye when you had the feeling that the passengers felt well, they were in a good mood, they enjoyed their vacation. And you can never be sure that your next cruise will be the same. You don't know. Maybe there's some external factor influencing the cruise, be it bad weather, be it medical emergency, for example, that can influence the schedule, whatever. Or something happens on board. Maybe for whatever reason, the waiters are not fast enough or you run out of beer or whatever.
I can imagine that on a German ship. What would happen? There'd definitely be a revolt.
Fortunately, it never happened as far as I
know. I just think that would be kind of a tough day because, you get to know your, even for the passengers, you get to know your wait staff. We were looking at some pictures, and our head waiter was Ritish from India, and got a great picture with him and with my wife and the kids, and it's got to be tough to you have that special moments with with your passengers, and then you see them leave, and then it's on to another set. Anyways, I just thought it might be it could be like an emotionally challenging day on top of just the physicality of doing a turnaround. So let's talk about how often do you get free time either on the ship or to go into the ports? Can you kind of move that free time around? Like, say, you're talking about at Aruba where you guys would go every 2 weeks and you'd have that spot to go to. Can you kind of set that up yourself, or do the managers above you kind of set those times for you?
Well, of course, your manager gives you your timetable, although you can influence it. Mm-hmm. Depends on the manager, of course, but usually in a team like the guest services, you can always talk to your colleagues and say, in that port, I want really to go off. Can you maybe do the early shift or whatever? And then you do the shift when your colleague wants to go off. You can usually do that in this department. I'm pretty sure for example, when you're working in the galley, it might not be possible that easy. And therefore, I feel very lucky because I'm a little bit flexible. There are certain ports also on the itinerary we will do on Mein Schiff 3 that I would really want to go off. One of them is Belfast because I want to visit the shipyard on which Titanic was built. So I have to be very kind to my colleagues so they let me go off.
Oh, that would be neat to see. I've heard that they've got a pretty good Titanic museum there in Belfast too. Am I right?
Yeah, as far as I heard, it's very, very interesting.
Okay. Well, that'll be hope that you get the opportunity to do that. So when you do have some free time on the ship, what are some of the things that you can do?
Oh, there are different things. You can, of course, a lot of time you spend eating and drinking, be it in the crew mess, which is open almost 24 hours a day. And we had a pub where you could play cardboard games or enjoy a drink and read a book, whatever, just hang out with your colleagues. Mm-hmm. And we got something we call the living room, which is right at the bow of the ship. It's an indoor area where we also have coffee machines and stuff like that. And you have right in front of the living room a crew deck, which you can enjoy and have a sunbath, or in my case, go out with your camera and photograph all the other ships that are in port with you. And what else do we have? Of course, there's a crew gym to do a little bit sports, and there are certain activities planned by the crew welfare team. They do karaoke evenings, they do crew excursions organized for all different departments. They do table tennis tournaments, basketball tournaments, football tournaments, or soccer tournaments. They organize it, and For example, for the basketball tournaments or sports tournaments in general, we go up to the upper deck where the sports area for the passengers is, and then at 10 p.m., 11 p.m., the crew goes there and enjoys a little match.
Yeah, I think it was when we did our cruise in the Caribbean, and we just saw him again in the Mediterranean. One of the guys that we got to know, Luis, up above, he's one of the servers that kind of walks around the pool deck, and you see him in some of the bars and stuff like that. But he was the head of the football team for the Magic, and they were playing the Castaway Key team when we were in Castaway Key that day, and I guess he missed an open shot, and everybody that we met was like, "Oh, you have to give Luis a hard time. He missed an open shot. We would have won if it wasn't for that." But it was all in good-natured fun and everything like that. So I thought it was kind of neat that they have those like tournaments, for you guys to do.
Yeah, and it's a real fun thing because you have, for example, sometimes you do have teams for departments, but sometimes you just ask people that you are friends with from other departments, form a team, and go out playing. It's very nice because no one is there to tell you, okay, now the galley department has to play against the waiter department or the restaurant department. So it's completely free. And usually the managers make sure if you want to go there every once in a while, you can go there.
So it's almost like you guys have a guest services for the crew, too, to keep you guys entertained. That's kind of neat.
Well, you have to say that the crew welfare team does that on a voluntary basis as a non-paid side job. So it's absolutely voluntarily, and they only do it for their colleagues. And that's very, very nice, and we are very thankful for that.
No, definitely. Well, let's talk about your cabin. Talk about like how big it is and how many people are there per cabin, and how does that work?
I don't even know exactly how large it is. It fits a bed, some other furniture, desk, chair, and a bathroom.
Okay.
On the new builds of TUI cruises, the maximum occupancy of crew cabins is 2 people. And that's very nice because on older ships you sometimes have to share cabins with in total 4 people or 6 or even 8 people sometimes, but that's more in the American ships. So the worst that could happen to you is sharing a cabin with one colleague, and then you have these beds where one is on a lower level and the other sleeps above. I don't know how they are called in English.
Bunk bed.
So you have one of these beds, and you have a bathroom which is quite similar to the bathroom that you find in passenger cabins. And in my case, I'm a little bit more lucky. I do have a so-called single shared cabin. So I have a single cabin, and I do share the bathroom with the cabin next to me. So there's in between 2 cabins, there's a bathroom accessible from both sides, and you only share the bathroom. That's my cabin. I don't know how large it might be. No, 6-7 square meters.
Okay, but definitely smaller than like what the passengers have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
There are 2 kinds of crew cabins that are a little bit larger for supervisors and managers. So if you have 2 stripes at TUI cruises, you get a larger inside cabin with a larger bathroom. You don't have to share anything. Bed is a little bit wider. And when you got 2.5 stripes, you get an outside cabin, so to speak, with a little porthole. And those are, a little bit bigger, absolutely. And then we call them the crew cabin suites for the cruise director and the hotel manager, and they have a little bit even more larger crew cabins. And all the people with 4 stripes on their shoulders, so captain, staff captain, chief engineer, and general manager, do have cabins on deck 12, which are comparable to usual balcony cabins.
Okay, so
that's the case at TUI cruises, at least. It might be different on other cruise lines.
Right. So they're up above, and the rest of you are down below the main passenger decks.
Yeah. In at TUI cruises, it's deck 1 and 2. So all crew cabins are above sea level, and on deck 3, the passenger area starts with the first passenger cabins.
Well, you talked a little bit about the crew galley, what other food options are there on board for you guys? You talked about the bar. They probably serve some snacks there. Is there anything else besides those two options, or what other options do you guys have?
You have the crew mess, as we call it, so the crew restaurant, which is buffet style. It's very interesting because one corner is more the Asian corner, then you have European corner, then you have South American corner. It's very interesting, and sometimes you think, that looks delicious, I will try it. And some things you would never try if it wasn't standing in front of you or laying in front of you. And then you have, of course, the crew pub, and they, for example, serve sushi there, which you have to pay a little bit extra for, or you can get some little snacks you could get there for just a few bucks, which is absolutely fine. And sometimes you can go and have lunch or dinner in the passenger area. Beginning at a certain level in the hierarchy, you can go eat in the buffet restaurant whenever you want. But if you are not, I think if you're under 2 stripes, you have to ask the hotel manager for permission to go there and make a reservation. But usually if you say, I want to go to the steakhouse, for example, well, steakhouse is a bad example because it's usually fully booked by the passengers. But if you want to go to the Asian restaurant, for example, you can just call the hotel manager 2-3 days in advance, and he will give you, or she will give you, the permission.
Do they charge you for that, or is that part of the working, or is that covered as part of your contract?
We are charged for it, but we get discounts. Even passengers would be charged in this restaurant, so there are specialty restaurants, but we get discounts.
Awesome. What's your favorite thing to eat, or what's your favorite place to eat?
Very good question. My favorite restaurant on the whole Mein Schiff fleet is the so-called Schmankerl, which is an Austrian restaurant, and it's only available on the Mein Schiff 5, and I love to have schnitzel over there.
Chicken? Wiener? Which one do you like?
No, Wiener Schnitzel.
Wiener.
The original.
Okay.
Original. And I know that, I can remember, one day, it was my last cruise, I was in the middle of the Caribbean enjoying Wiener Schnitzel, and I could not be happier.
That's a priceless moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what else? Is there anything on there that might surprise us passengers that you guys do or get to experience, or anything else? Is there anything that might surprise us that you guys get to experience that we wouldn't know anything about?
I'm not allowed to talk about this.
Okay.
No. Of course, there are things you would not talk about towards passengers. But I think one thing most passengers might not know is that there are emergency drills for the crew every week. So we do not only do the drill with the passengers at the embarkation day, but we also do it internally, so to speak, as a crew every week. Just to keep trained, to repeat, so that in a real emergency, you know exactly what's your job and what you have to do.
Yeah, when we were in Cannes, France, they lowered one of the lifeboats, and I saw them, they took it out, and they were doing different drills on the lifeboat to practice that. So it definitely, even as a passenger, you kind of see that every now and then, I guess, some of the things that you guys go through. And it's kind of neat to see that you're so well trained for those emergency type situations.
Yeah. So in my opinion, these emergency drills and trainings are one of the most important parts of being a crew member, because in a emergency, you are the ones who know the ship, know every corner of the ship, and can direct guests to the places they have to go. And I'm pretty sure you know that from your flight attendants, that sometimes people recognize them only as the people who serve them food and drinks, and don't recognize the role, the very important role they have in case of an emergency.
And definitely. There is a movie about, over here in the U.S., we had a plane that safely landed on the Hudson River. And
I remember, yeah.
Yeah, there's a movie about, Sully was the captain's name, and there's a movie called Sully, I believe. And it shows very clearly that point where, as they're coming into land, the flight attendants are are kind of going through their mantra of, keep your heads down, brace for impact and all this stuff. It's preparing the passengers, and that's something that all of us, and I really hope you never have to experience, obviously. But it was really emotional to see them actually doing their job and seeing the impact that they had, and the impact that you guys would have if there was ever an emergency like that. And it just kind of comes to mind that movie, I think, really brought it out that that's truly what they're on board for. And in some ways, that's the majority of is going to be the fun and everything else. But if that emergency ever arises, and hopefully it never will, you guys are so well trained to meet it.
Yeah, hopefully I will never experience a serious incident on board. But it's better to prepare for it and let it never happen than the other way around.
Definitely. And I think today's technology in airplanes, and especially in ships, is so much different compared to what it was, 30, 40, 50 years ago. So I think that does a lot to precluding some of the problems that they had in the past.
Yes, absolutely. Technology, there are automatic man overboard systems that report to the bridge automatically when something goes overboard. Alone, this thing it's so helpful, and in my opinion, all cruise lines should use these systems.
Somebody just recently lost somebody overboard, and they knew that, I think it was a crew member from a Norwegian fell overboard, and they knew it. They went back looking for him, but it was at night, and they ended up, a Carnival ship picked him up. So yeah. So it was neat that he survived, and but you kind of saw that they had that in action right on the Norwegian ship that you're talking about. Yeah,
probably they had such a system, and happily the crew member survived it. And usually when you fall overboard, it's very, very difficult to find you, especially at night.
As we're kind of coming to the end of the show here, I've got one last question for you, or two last questions, I guess. Okay. What kind of advice would you give somebody who wants to work in the cruise industry? What things should they think about, and what kind of advice would you have for them?
Oh, that's a tough question.
I know
it's a real tough.
It kind of encompasses so many different things, but what are some of the things that maybe people should think about or prepare for?
Definitely be prepared that not every single day will be fun. And sometimes you probably will wish to just end your contract immediately and go home. But the next day, maybe you just needed some sleep. The next day will be better. And one very good advice is to actually prepare yourself. Be prepared to, once you finished your contract, to be kind of needing this cruise ship lifestyle. Because once you go back home, you will wish you wanted to. You will wish to go back on board. So it's a world of contrasts, so to speak. Sometimes it's very good. Sometimes it's very bad. But in the end, the positive things, in my opinion, are more, and you will wish to go back, or you will. I think it's the same like with a passenger. You either love it or hate it, and be prepared to find it out for yourself, sometimes on a very hard way.
I think that's well said. That's a tough thing to encompass. And in my job, it's the same way. And just traveling, I mean, I love traveling so much that it's sort of addictive, that when you're doing it, sometimes you get tired of it, but when it's not there, you miss it.
You miss it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one advice you definitely have to keep in mind if you want to become a cruise ship crew member, take your time and look for a position, a job that really fits you and that you think, well, I want to do that 7 days a week for 4, 5, 6 months, that I can enjoy this job. There are so many different positions, and all major cruise lines are looking for crew members. So take your time and look for the right position.
Well, that's some excellent advice. Yeah, you don't want to be doing something, just taking a job just to take it, and then 3 months in, you're like, oh my gosh, doing this is a chore. Well, thank you so much, Florian. I guess the last question I have is, besides Belfast and stopping in Belfast to see where the Titanic was made, what else are you looking forward to on this cruise? And not necessarily just stopping in different places, but is it spending time with your girlfriend abroad or being back with friends, or what are some of the other things that you're looking forward to?
Oh, there are so many things. First of all, I'm looking forward to celebrate my birthday on board once again, which is probably going to be fun. And there are several ports, of course, I would like to go out and see a little bit shoreside. Some of them are still in the Northern Europe area, Great Britain. And to be honest, I am already looking forward to my flight home, because flying is my second love, so to speak. I'm an aviation enthusiast, so yes, I'm looking forward to the long-haul flight from Singapore somewhere to Germany. I don't know. I'm planning to do a cross-training on the job training to maybe become a supervisor or manager someday. And that would be nice if that works out.
Well, you can definitely hear the excitement in your voice as you're just a couple of days away now from embarking on your next cruise. And I want to wish you all the best as you do it. I know a lot of our listeners are going to miss your updates as you're out at sea, and we look forward to having you back on once you get back next Christmas time. And just from all of us here at the DCL podcast, just have a great time, Florian. We wish you all the best. Have a happy birthday on board the ship, and just all the best of luck, and have a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. And of course, we will do a show afterwards, and I can tell you all the adventures and experiences I made in the 4 months, hopefully.
Definitely. Well, I look forward to it. Well, thanks again, Florian, for kind of opening our eyes as to what it's like to actually work on a cruise ship. And once again, best of luck to you and your girlfriend, and just have a great cruise.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Well, once again, I'd like to thank Florian for coming on and taking time out of his busy schedule before he began his next contract cruise to kind of fill us in on what's been going on over at Meyer Werft, and also to kind of fill us in on what it's like to get that contract and to work on board a ship for the cruise industry. And I can let you know that he did make it to Belfast and made it to the Titanic Museum. I saw some amazing pictures on Facebook of his time there at the museum. So between now and our next show, if you would like to get a hold of Christy and I, you can reach us on Facebook. You can reach Steve on Facebook at the DCL Podcast, or on Twitter at DCL Podcast. And as always, you can reach Christy at PackYR Pixie Dust on Twitter and Pack Your Pixie Dust on Facebook. And also packyourpixiedust.com. Don't forget that one as well. And we also have an Instagram page. If you want to go to that, it's the DCL Podcast on Instagram as well. If you know anybody else who would enjoy our show, we sure would appreciate it if you would take the time to let them know about it. It helps us get the word out in the cruising industry, and just the Disney community as well, to help us grow the show. And if you have time and would like to, we'd love it if you'd go over to iTunes and leave us an iTunes review as well. So between now and the next show, if you are heading out on your next vacation, all of us here at the DCL Podcast would like to wish you fair winds and safe travels as you head out on your next adventure. Once again, thanks for coming back and taking a listen, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.